Look, Tom, it has been an eternity with this bill as it slowly makes its way through Parliament. I think Liz Truss's comments are quite significant. And what they indicate in particular is an interest in dealing with one of the key concerns with the bill, which is in relation to legal but harmful speech. This is the provision of the bill that requires the companies to state in their terms and conditions how they're going to address a preset list of government-set legal but harmful speech. And that raises a lot of issues. It creates a lot of discretionary power to potentially censor speech. The current list includes things like abuse and harassment, health and vaccine information. But we should note that Labor's Lucy Powers, the Shadow Minister, has suggested it should include things like climate denial. So there's a big risk that once you start stating categories of legal but harmful speech, you are inevitably expanding censorship. And the notion that Truss may address that issue by removing those provisions is a very good sign for free speech. But I don't think that's necessarily going to solve all the issues in the bill. There are a lot of other issues when it comes to free speech that wouldn't be addressed by just removing those provisions. If we just take the sections in the bill about illegal speech, you think that would be completely reasonable. Of course, the companies shouldn't be hosting illegal speech on their platforms. The problem is that the bill, as it currently states, that requires them to proactively monitor and automatically remove speech which they reasonably likely to infer could be illegal. So what that practically means is significantly lowering the threshold and requiring the platforms to remove legal speech without any of the normal criminal processes and protections that you would have. So I think you have to address some of these more fundamental issues with the bill if we're going to address the free speech concerns, not just those legal but harmful provisions.
Yes, that could be illegal is an interesting test. That's sort of the opposite. That's presumption of guilt rather than presumption of innocence. That doesn't sound like the online world will have the same protections as the offline world. Might Liz Truss be following through on that, given what she says about, at least for the over 18s, having this equivalence between offline and online?
I think that's right. It would be consistent with her framework, which is to address issues when it comes to children whilst allowing broader free speech amongst adults to deal with some of those issues in the bill when it comes to lowering the legal threshold. What they're effectively doing is threatening the companies with massive fines if they don't be extremely proactive in their removals. Ofcom can fine the companies up to 10% of global revenues. You're talking about billions and billions of pounds. And we know time and time again, these major tech platforms, we do have free speech concerns about them precisely because some of their algorithms are so sensitive that they end up removing speech in an overly proactive manner. Now, that will be the incentive as a result of this bill. And you've got to deal with that underlying issue where you're creating an impetus to be censorious. Now, another issue in the bill, for example, that would be important to address is the new harmful communications offence. Now, that requires, in a criminal law sense, you to not say anything that could cause serious psychological distress to a likely audience without a reasonable excuse. Now, that might be an okay offence if it goes through the criminal process. When you combine that with the duties on the companies, they're going to be expected to remove any content they could reasonably infer could cause psychological distress. Now, that is basically asking for a heckler's veto. It's saying, this is distressing to me. You must remove it from your platform. You have to do that. Now, these structural issues need to be addressed in the bill in order to ensure that it doesn't interfere with free speech.